No, Mr. Bond. I expect you to die.
Do you expect me to talk? No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
6 words. 60 years later, they still land. Goldfinger didn't just give us a great villain. It gave us the template for every spy film that followed. The gadgets, the girl painted in gold, the car that became a legend. Today, we're cracking open 19 secrets from behind the camera of the film that changed everything. Casting disasters, production cover-ups, a theme song nearly killed before it premiered, and a mystery that's never been solved. Welcome to Sitcom Secrets, where every rewatch reveals something new. Let's get into it. Fact number 19. The most famous car in the world is still missing. The original Aston Martin DB5, the gadget car used in Goldfinger, the only one of 4 built with a working ejector seat, machine guns, and all of Q's modifications, was sold after filming wrapped. By the 1990s, it was worth millions. In 1997, it was in a secured hangar at Boca Raton Airport. Then someone cut through, disabled the alarm, and took it. No arrest was ever made. For over 2 decades, nobody knew where it was, until investigators at Art Recovery International tracked it to a private collection somewhere in the Middle East. It's been located but never recovered. Bond's car is out there. Someone just won't give it back. Fact number 18. The future Bond producer. Hiding in plain sight. Behind every great James Bond film is a producer who sees the potential before anyone else. For Goldfinger, that person was Albert R. Broccoli. Broccoli had already produced the first 2 Bond films. But during Goldfinger, he made key decisions that would shape the franchise for decades. From insisting on extravagant sets and stunts to supporting the gadgets and iconic Aston Martin DB5 sequence. He also spotted talent in unexpected places, crew members, writers, and even future producers who would later carry the Bond legacy forward. Broccoli's influence wasn't flashy. It was strategic. He understood that the Bond formula worked best when behind-the-scenes vision matched on-screen spectacle. Without that foresight, the gadgets, the girl painted in gold, and the car that became a legend might never have made it to the screen. Sometimes the most important players are the ones hiding in plain sight. Fact number 17. The fastest grossing film in history.
And engage and fire the passenger ejector seat. Whoosh.
Ejector seat? You're joking.
I never joke about my work, 007.
Goldfinger had a modest $3 million budget, roughly the combined cost of the first 2 James Bond films. Despite that, it recouped its budget almost immediately, and eventually grossed over $120 million worldwide. The timing couldn't have been better. Nearly 6 million James Bond novels sold in Britain in 1964 alone. The merchandise frenzy added fuel to the fire. The Corgi DB5 toy became the biggest-selling toy of the year. A movie shot largely on a soundstage at Pinewood Studios in Buckinghamshire had rewritten what the film industry thought was financially possible. Goldfinger proved that a well-executed spy spectacle could be both a critical and commercial juggernaut. Fact number 16. Connery learned golf for the film and never stopped.
Oh, what a pity. Here it is.
No, it's not. He plays a Schlesinger 1.
Strict rules of golf, Goldfinger. 5 minutes or almost up. The lost ball will cost you stroke and distance.
Sean Connery had never played golf before, filming the iconic duel between Bond and Goldfinger at Stoke Park. To make the scene believable, he learned the game from scratch and nailed it. But the story didn't end there. Connery discovered a lifelong passion for golf, playing regularly for decades. He also gave back. Connery co-founded the Scottish International Educational Trust and donated a significant portion of his Diamonds Are Forever salary to support young Scots. A brief 4-minute scene not only enhanced the film, but changed the course of Connery's life. Fact 15. The score Michael Caine heard first. When John Barry was working through the night to finish the Goldfinger theme, he was doing it in his Cadogan Square flat, where a young Michael Caine was sleeping in the spare room. Caine had recently lost his apartment and asked his friend Barry for the spare room. Barry said yes. For several months, a future 2-time Oscar winner slept down the hall, while one of cinema's most iconic scores was being written under the same roof. Caine was kept awake that sleepless night by the sound of the piano, and in the morning, when he came downstairs for breakfast, Barry played him what he'd written. Caine was among the first people to hear the Goldfinger theme. The man who almost became Bond heard the music for the film he never made, over breakfast in his temporary bedroom. Fact 14. Ian Fleming visited the set and never lived to see it open. Fleming visited the Goldfinger set at Pinewood in April 1964, walking the sound stages, watching his creation filmed at full scale. He died on 12th of August 1964, aged 56. The premiere was 17th of September. He missed it by 5 weeks. He never saw the audience react, never witnessed the box office explosion, the bookshop selling out, or nearly 1 million copies of his Goldfinger novel shift in a single year. He built the machine. He just didn't get to watch it run. Sometimes the person most responsible for something never gets to see what it becomes. Fact 13. The Nazi who saved a Jewish family. When Goldfinger debuted in Israel in late 1965, it was popular, until a London newspaper published an interview with Gert Fröbe. The Daily Mail ran the headline, "Of course I was a Nazi," but crucially, they had truncated his actual quote. What Fröbe had said in full was, "During the Third Reich, I had the luck to be able to help 2 Jewish people, although I was a member of the Nazi Party." Israel temporarily banned the film due to his past, but the ban was lifted after a man named Mario Blumenau walked into the Israeli embassy in Vienna and revealed that Fröbe had hidden him and his mother from the Nazis during the war. Without that protection, neither would have survived. The full picture revealed a man who had left the party before the war, then quietly helped protect the people it was hunting. The actor who played Bond's coldest villain had, in real life, taken a genuine human risk to protect the innocent. Fact 12. The lyricists who first stole Moon River. When John Barry played the Goldfinger melody for lyricists Leslie Bricusse and Anthony Newley, the 2 men immediately started singing Moon River to it. Barry was not amused. They were given no script, no footage, just one plot detail. The villain kills a woman by painting her in gold. That image inspired The Midas Touch, which became the song's entire spine. Bricusse and Newley recorded an early, eerie demo before Shirley Bassey's version. Barry called their performance very creepy, and meant it as a compliment, calling it terrific. The demo was shelved, and the version the world knows almost had an entirely different voice. It wasn't widely released publicly until 1992. Fact 11. The theme song, the producer called the worst ever written. Shirley Bassey's Goldfinger, now Grammy Hall of Fame inducted, a top 10 Billboard hit, and the template for every Bond theme since, almost didn't survive its own recording session. Producer Harry Saltzman reportedly called it the worst song he had ever heard. The session ran all night, with repeated takes due to technical glitches. At the climax, John Barry kept demanding that Bassey hold the final note longer and longer, until she was nearly blue in the face. Despite the chaos, the song was completed in time for the premiere, and went on to become one of cinema's most iconic themes. Fact 10. The Fort Knox interior nobody had ever seen. The climactic showdown inside Fort Knox, gold bars towering, soldiers sprawled across the floor, is pure cinematic invention. Not because the scene was fictional, but because nobody on the production had ever seen the real Fort Knox interior. The US government refused all access. Production designer Ken Adam took the creative leap and built it like a cathedral of gold. 40 feet high, stacked all the way to the studio roof. Broccoli and Saltzman initially hesitated. One said it looked like a prison. Adam pressed on anyway at Pinewood Studios, crafting every bar as a prop. The set was so realistic that a 24-hour guard was posted to stop people from stealing the fake gold. Even the real Fort Knox controller later wrote to compliment the depiction. The most secure building in America was recreated in Buckinghamshire by people who had never stepped inside. Fact 9. The buzzsaw that became a laser. In Ian Fleming's novel, Goldfinger menaces Bond with a circular buzzsaw, inching slowly toward him. Screenwriter Richard Maybaum decided to modernize it. The buzzsaw, he reasoned, was overused in cheap serials and would feel cliched, even laughable, to audiences. Maybaum replaced it with an industrial laser, giving us the now iconic exchange. Do you expect me to talk? No, Mr. Bond. I expect you to die.
Do you expect me to talk? No, No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
This marked the first laser-based death device in a Bond film, elevating both the suspense and the threat to cinematic legend. Fact 8. Oddjob held the charge and said nothing. Harold Sakata, Olympic silver medal weightlifter, professional wrestler, and first-time actor, was cast as Oddjob after director Guy Hamilton spotted him on a televised wrestling program. On set, Sakata's dedication was absolute. During the death scene, where Bond electrocutes Oddjob against the vault bars, real practical charges were used, and Sakata suffered minor burns before Hamilton called cut. Earlier in filming, Sakata delivered a genuine karate chop to Sean Connery during the hotel room confrontation, causing Connery to briefly leave the set. Through it all, Sakata never flinched or complained, demonstrating remarkable commitment to his role, embodying Oddjob's silent menace both on and off camera. Fact 7. Sean Connery never left England. Goldfinger opens in Miami, moves through the Swiss Alps, and climaxes at Fort Knox, Kentucky. But Sean Connery filmed almost none of it on location. When principal photography began in Miami in January 1964, Connery was still in the US, finishing Alfred Hitchcock's Marnie. Director Guy Hamilton confirmed that none of the principal cast were present for the Miami sequences. Connery, Gert Fröbe, and Shirley Eaton filmed their scenes entirely on Pinewood soundstages, where production designer Ken Adam had built meticulous replicas. Some establishing shots were filmed on location in Miami, but close-ups and main performances were all in England. Connery did travel to Switzerland for a week of alpine shooting, but he never went to Fort Knox. The Kentucky shots showing Bond at the vault were second unit footage, later cut around Pinewood close-ups. In short, the globe-trotting adventure that felt vast and international was almost entirely constructed within driving distance of London. Fact 6. The gadgets nobody planned. The Aston Martin DB5's legendary gadgetry wasn't in the original script. In fact, the first idea was simple. A smokescreen. That was it. Everything else came from improvisation and creative chaos. Director Guy Hamilton invented the revolving number plates because he kept getting parking tickets. His stepson suggested the ejector seat after seeing one on TV. A nail scattering device was cut. Producers worried audiences might try it on real roads, and replaced with an oil dispenser. Production designer Ken Adam and special effects engineer John Steers then spent 6 weeks physically installing every mechanism into the prototype car. The result? The most elaborately gadgeted car in cinematic history. Built entirely from a film crew's imagination. Nobody planned it fully, but everybody contributed. Fact 5. The car Aston Martin refused to loan. When special effects supervisor John Steers and production designer Ken Adam approached Aston Martin about using their latest model, the company initially said no. They weren't impressed with the Bond crew's plans for the car. Negotiations dragged on, and Aston Martin's David Brown insisted the production buy the cars outright. Eventually, a compromise was reached. The company loaned 2 DB5s for the duration of filming, to be returned afterward. On screen, the DB5 appeared for just a few minutes, but it left a lasting mark. Dubbed the most famous car in the world at the 1964 New York World's Fair, it sent Aston Martin's sales soaring. What started as reluctant cooperation became one of the greatest examples of automotive branding in film history, and Aston Martin has been part of the Bond legacy ever since. Fact 4. The star who priced himself out.
Gently, bud, gently. Let's not get excited.
Jack Lord, who had played CIA agent Felix Leiter in Dr. No, and would later become iconic as the star of Hawaii Five-0, was offered the role of Leiter in Goldfinger. He was interested, and the producers were too, but negotiations over salary and the size of the role fell through. The part eventually went to Sek Linder, with Austin Willis briefly involved during casting adjustments. Lord's decision wasn't unreasonable. Goldfinger was about to become one of the biggest films in the world. In the end, Hawaii Five-0 cemented his legacy, and the version of the film where Jack Lord faces the laser was never made. Fact 3. The oldest Bond girl in history.
The humming means you're in Mr. Goldfinger's Lockheed Jetstar heading for Baltimore, and you're his guest.
I'm honored. I never realized he enjoyed my company that much.
Honor Blackman, who played Pussy Galore, was 38 during filming and turned 39 during post-production, making her one of the oldest Bond girls in the franchise up to that point. The producers didn't hesitate to cast her. Blackman had just finished a celebrated run on The Avengers, playing leather-clad, judo-skilled Kathy Gale, a role that had already redefined how women could appear in action roles on British television. She trained extensively in judo, earned a brown belt, and performed many of her own stunts. When she arrived on Goldfinger, she wasn't an unknown seeking a break. She was a star with a fully formed skill set. The script was actually rewritten to make Pussy Galore a judoka specifically, to showcase Blackman's abilities. In a franchise long obsessed with youth, she remains the exception, quietly outshining the rule. Sometimes the most commanding presence in the room is simply the most experienced one. Fact 2. The director who reinvented Bond. Terence Young, who had directed Dr. No and From Russia with Love, was expected to return for Goldfinger. He contributed to early pre-production, but then walked away, not due to exhaustion, but over a pay dispute. Young wanted a percentage of the profits. Broccoli and Saltzman refused. Young quit and went on to direct The Amorous Adventures of Moll Flanders instead. The producers then turned to Guy Hamilton, who had previously declined Dr. Numbers. Hamilton came with a clear vision. Bond needed to become more fantastical. He amplified humor, expanded gadgetry, and turned villains into theatrical forces rather than mere threats. Every Bond film after 1964, the tone, the formula, the rhythm, owes its DNA to that creative pivot. A single pay dispute reshaped 60 years of cinema. Fact 1. The villain who couldn't speak a word of English.
You all made the deliveries we contracted for.
And you owe me $1 million.
I owe each of you $1 million. In gold bullion.
So pay!
Every word Auric Goldfinger speaks in the film, every threat, every monologue, every syllable of that immortal line, was voiced by someone who was never on screen. Gert Fröbe, the actor, could not speak English. His agent had assured producers otherwise, but on the first day of filming, that claim evaporated. Fröbe had to learn each line phonetically, mouthing words at full speed so the dubbing would sync later. English actor Michael Collins provided the voice in post-production, giving Goldfinger his signature refined yet menacing tone. The performance audiences fell in love with was split between two men, one in front of the camera and one behind the microphone. Together, they created one of cinema's most memorable villains. Sometimes, the performance you remember was never quite what it appeared to be. Goldfinger endures because it understood something most films never do. The best entertainment doesn't just show you a world, it makes you want to live in it. Even 60 years later, audiences still feel the pull of that Aston Martin on a mountain road, the tension of the laser in the half-dark, and the thrill of a theme building from nothing to everything in just 4 iconic notes. This isn't just nostalgia, it's the feeling of watching a team push past what seemed possible and pull it off anyway.